Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to be giving you an introduction to the SetState method in React. React is a JavaScript library that makes it easier to build user interfaces and UI components. This video is part of a bootcamp I'm doing where I'm learning to code, so I invite you to learn along with me. Let's get started. Now, in order to use the SetState method, we first have to build a React application. And I'm just going to build a really simple application with two buttons, one that displays an image and one that hides the image. I like cats, so I'm going to use a cat pic. I've already picked out a cat pic from Pexels. I think this cat sitting next to a computer sums up my channel pretty well. And as you can see, I've downloaded it and saved it as kitty.jpg so that I can work with it later. Cool. Now, as you can see, I've also actually already created my React app called Kitty app because React, much like a cat, kind of does everything on its own timetable according to its whims, including installation, and I didn't want to make you guys sit through that. So now we just have to run it. Let's type cd kitty app and npm start. And it should open up our browser pretty soon. Okay. Cool. Now our browser is showing us our React app and telling us to edit app.js in order to edit our application. So let's open up our app.js, and you'll see that React has already set up a basic template for us. Cool, but in this template there's a lot we don't actually need, so we're going to take everything enclosed within return and delete it. So now we just have a set of empty parentheses, and inside those parentheses we're going to create a React fragment for our app to return. So let's type react.fragment. And inside our React fragment, we're going to tell our app what components we want it to return. Except right now we don't actually have any components. So let's go make a component. Let's create a folder called components in our source folder. Components, make sure you spell it right. And in this folder, we're going to store all our components. And so inside this folder, let's make our component called catpic.jsx. And let's also move our kitty.jpg into our components folder so that'll be easier to access. And it's asking me if I'm sure if I want to move kitty.jpg into components. Yes, I'm sure. But thank you for asking. That was very polite. Now that we have our component set up, even though there's currently nothing in it, let's add it to our app.js so that our browser will automatically update when we make changes to our component. So in our app.js, let's import catpic from ./components/C catpic. And while we're at it, let's delete this logo because we don't need it. And now inside our React fragment, let's place our catpic component. So let's type catpic and close out the element. All right, and believe it or not, that's all we need to do inside our app.js. So let's move on over to our catpic.jsx and let's get started building our component. Now React already has a base component class set up for us to use, so let's start by importing that. In Visual Studio Code, we can use the imrc shortcut to import both React and the component class. Great. Now let's use the cc shortcut to create a class that extends the component class. And let's call our class catpic. Now, the other thing we want to import is our kitty.jpg. So let's import kitty from ./kitty.jpg. Cool. Now we're ready to get started. Let's start by making our buttons. So where it says return inside our render method, let's create a new React fragment. So same as before, react.fragment. And inside our fragment, let's create two buttons. Let's call our first button Show Cat Pic, and let's call our second button Hide Cat Pic. All right, now let's add some functionality to our buttons. So for each of our buttons, we're going to say on click, and then a pair of curly braces, which will contain what we want to happen when we click on it. So let's do that for the second button as well. And inside these curly braces, we're going to write a function, which I'm going to write as an arrow function. So empty parentheses, that little arrow, and then another set of curly braces. And inside this function is where we're going to use our SetState method. And the SetState method will basically allow us to update our user interface by telling React to re-render the state with whatever changes we pass into our method. So before we use SetState, we should probably first describe our initial state. In order to do that, we're actually going to need to use a constructor. And inside our constructor, we're going to call super so that we can access the base constructor. We're also going to pass in props to our constructor and to super so that we can access the properties of our base constructor. Now, in order to initialize our state, we just write this.state equals, and then whatever we want to put inside our state object. Now, the thing we want to be able to update with our buttons is whether or not we're showing the cat pic. So that's the property we want our state object to have, the property of showing or not showing. So let's call our property isShow, and let's set it to false to begin with, because when we first load a page, we don't want to show the cat pic. All right, now in the state object, we can just set our isShow property to this.props.isShow, and it'll automatically take what we wrote in our constructor and assign it to our state. So isShow is currently false. All right, now we're ready to use our SetState method with our buttons. So inside our arrow function, we're going to write this.setState, and then we're going to pass in whatever we want to set our state as, which is going to be an object, so let's put it in curly braces. So for our show cat pic button, we want isShow to be true. So that's what we're going to pass in. And for our hide cat pic button, it's the opposite. We want isShow to be false. So this.setState isShow false. And finally, we want to actually say what's going to happen if isShow is true or false. So first, let's just put a couple spaces after our buttons. So BR and BR. Okay, and now we need a set of curly braces. And inside our curly braces, we're going to use the ternary operator. So this.state.isShow, then a question mark, and then we're going to put what happens if this.state.isShow is true. So in that case, we display an image. And this image, its source, is our kitty image. And let's set the width to 50% and the height also to 50%, because otherwise it is going to be obnoxiously huge. And for the alt text, we can just say cat pic. Okay, then after the image, we're going to have a colon, and now we say what we want to happen if isShow is false, which is nothing, so just an empty string. All right, let's save. Now let's go to our localhost 3000, and here we have our buttons. Let's test them out. Show cat pic, and here's our cat pic. Hide cat pic, now it's gone. Show cat pic, hide cat pic, show cat pic, hide cat pic, and you could pretty much do this all day. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you can see how the SetState method allows us to re-render the state and update the UI in response to events. If you liked this video, or even if you just like cats, please leave a thumbs up and a comment down below. Hit that subscribe button if you're so inclined, and I'll see you next time.